Secret endings or post-credit scenes have been prevalent within entertainment for some time now, with films often using them to set up what might come next in the franchise, or to continue a gag that happened during the film that maybe was forgotten about.
Well, I'll give him another 20 minutes, but that's it.
Within the realm of video games, unlocking such scenes has often required much more than just patience, and many games have implemented mechanics of this nature. But Final Fantasy often steered clear of including secret endings until much more recent times. This may have been due to the self-contained nature of each game, or it could have been that such scenes were often incorporated into the games themselves, so there was no need to do anything additional at the ending. Either way, as we ventured into the realm of Square Enix, as opposed to Square, the appearance of secret endings has become much more prevalent. Some are quite easy to obtain in relative terms, such as the iconic secret ending of Dirge's Cerberus that contained a leather-clad Gact, but others require a lot more effort to obtain, and perhaps the best place to start in this regard is with Final Fantasy XIII-2, which was infamous in some regards for having its true ending arrive within a piece of downloadable content called Lightning's Story, Requiem of the Goddess. It's at this point though that I would like to note that this video will contain spoilers, so you have been warned. Final Fantasy XIII-2 was quite unique, as it featured a whole host of alternate endings and secret scenes that gave additional context and foreshadowed what was to come within the next installment. Within the base game, the ending sequence focused on Sarah's fate before displaying a "to be continued" message, something that had never been done within a Final Fantasy game before. But an additional scene can be unlocked if every fragment is obtained and every paradox ending is seen. In total, there are 160 fragments to collect, and the method of acquisition varies in significant ways. Some can be obtained by defeating difficult enemies, while others can be found in the field by using various abilities. This is both time-consuming and difficult, as two of the game's super bosses, Long Gui and Yomi, both need to be defeated. The game also features 8 paradox endings as part of the main experience. These show alternative conclusions to the game's story and can be triggered by making certain choices or undertaking certain actions. Once these two criteria have been met, a secret scene will play within the game's ending that shows Caius unleashing chaos on Grand Pulse and declaring he will make a world where he and Yule are freed from their unwanted gifts. An additional scene can also be unlocked within the aforementioned DLC. If Caius is defeated with a 5-star battle rating, a new scene will show Lightning waking up from her crystal stasis, and it serves as the setup for Lightning Returns. Even though secret endings have often been quite prevalent within spin-offs and sequels though, they have almost never appeared within the main series games. Final Fantasy IX is an exception in this regard, as an additional scene can play out within the game's ending sequence if you manage to complete the Stellazzio coin side quest and don't use the item that's gained as a reward. This quest can be initiated by speaking with Queen Stella in Trino, whereby you will learn that she is looking for star-shaped coins that were created by the artist called Stellazzio. There are 13 in total, with the first 12 being named after the signs of the zodiac, and the last one named after the 13th sign of the zodiac, Ophiuchus. Each coin can be found in locations throughout Gaia, and Queen Stella is able to provide very vague clues as to their locations, but only for the initial 12. She had always suspected that there might be a 13th coin, but knows nothing about its location. Without a guide, the location can be found by looking at clues on the back of each coin in the key items menu in the correct order. After each Stellazzio coin is found, Queen Stella will provide a reward. These include sums of money, the blood sword, and the robe of lords, and after providing her with the 13th coin, she will give you Sinner's weapon, the hammer. After beating Hades, this can be used to synthesize the tin armor, but if you're able to restrain yourself and have it in your inventory at the end of the game, an extra scene will play. And in this scene, Baku plays King Leo in a rendition of I Want to Be Your Canary and pretends to execute Blank. Another secret ending was in Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings, which was quite different from its predecessor in more ways than one. Even though it featured plenty of familiar faces, it arrived on a different console and used a different genre as its base. Its secret ending pandered to fans who had been wanting to see romance between two of the protagonists from the original game, and to unlock this special sequence, you needed to achieve 100% completion of the game, in the sense that all mandatory and optional missions needed to be completed. In terms of the story missions, this is quite straightforward, as each of the 45 missions will be completed through natural progression, But within each chapter, side missions also become available via the notice board set up by Tomage on the Galbana, and some of these have special requirements that need to be fulfilled before they will unlock. If you progress through the story missions, the side missions, while challenging, shouldn't be that challenging. The real challenge is the final step, as if game progress is at 100% when entering the final battle against Fail Thanos Exultant, he will be upgraded to level 99 as opposed to the standard level 60. This will make a significant difference to the difficulty of the fight, unless, of course, you want to take the time to level up all your characters to a similar level. After vanquishing this rather devilish foe, you will gain access to the secret ending, and it's here that a romantic connection between Varn and Penelo is teased as they share a kiss and attempt to run away from Rabanastre together. Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn also featured a secret ending, but it's kind of a red herring as new players who joined the experience after the game's launch are unable to access it. Everyone knows that the original incarnation of Final Fantasy XIV was rough, and turning that ship around required a mammoth effort from the team at Square Enix that was led by Naoki Yoshida. But outside of them flat out fixing the game and making it enjoyable, a crucial part of Final Fantasy XIV's rebirth was the community who stuck with the game even during its darkest hours. Given that Yoshida had placed a significant emphasis on engaging with and involving the community throughout the process, when A Realm Reborn launched, they wanted to thank everyone from 1.0 who had stuck with the game and come back. Front and center was the Legacy campaign. It offered exclusive in-game items and even the ability to have your name featured within the game's credits. But in addition to exclusive scenes hidden within the game, there was a secret ending that only Legacy players would have the chance to see. After defeating Ultima Weapon and La Habrea, if the player had completed the original 1.0 storyline, the final sequence in the Praetorium would be different to that seen by those who hadn't. In a unique twist, the Mother Crystal would make the Scions and the leaders of the Eorzean Alliance remember that the player is the same warrior of light who survived the calamity 5 years prior. It made the experience feel much more personal and was a fitting tribute to those who braved the dark days. When Dissidia Final Fantasy arrived in 2008, the notion of secret content had already been established by numerous spin-offs and sequels. Within this particular game, if players went that extra mile, they would unlock a scene that would discuss the future of the world the game takes place in. In typical form, the secret ending could only be unlocked after something had been acquired, and in this case, it was reports that helped to flesh out the backstory of the Dissidia universe and its connection to the original Final Fantasy. But due to the type of game it was, the way to obtain these reports was quite different from what had come before. After beating the story mode, you gain access to the Dual Colosseum and the Shade Impulse story mode, and after performing certain actions within each of these modes, you will be able to acquire the Chaos and Cosmos reports. Within the Dual Colosseum, you will need to beat the boss version of each protagonist from the first 10 games when making sure to use the opposing antagonist. For each new protagonist beaten, you will acquire one of the 10 Chaos reports. To acquire the 10 Cosmos reports, you will need to complete Shade Impulse Chapter 4 with each available protagonist, except Shantoto. Outside of the valuable lore housed within, obtaining all of the reports unlocks the secret epilogue scene. It showed that Cosmos lived following the conclusion of the game as she discussed the future of the world with Cid of the Lufane. World of Final Fantasy is the most recent game to feature multiple endings that weren't related to patches or downloadable content, but it was quite similar to Nier in the sense that just beating the game only granted the bad ending, as the game wasn't actually beaten. It's from this point that you need to load up your completed save in order to tackle the postscript content, and there's a significant number of steps that need to be undertaken in order to obtain the game's good, true ending and the Turn Those Corners Up trophy. Part of this will involve watching new cutscenes and completing a bunch of new intervention quests that are added into the Girls' Tea Room. This will also involve imprisoning the Pleiad, and once this is done, a new mini-venture called Vestiges of Life will unlock. Fulfilling these requirements will unlock the final battle against X9 Bahamut, but unless you also make sure that every quest is complete from the girl who forgot her name, you will not be able to view the good ending, where Rain and Lan are able to defeat Brandelis, but realise the only way they can send him out of Grimoire is to leave with him. To make things even more interesting, World of Final Fantasy Maxima, which arrived at the end of 2018, added a further secret ending, and to view this, you need to beat X9 Bahamut for a second time. And that brings us on to Final Fantasy X-2, a game where what you did during your playthrough would have a significant impact on the end credits scene you received, and unless you are very dedicated, would leave you missing out on some very important fan service. In total, Final Fantasy X-2 featured 6 different endings, and the easiest to obtain is the bad ending, which you receive if you lose to the head portion of Vegnagun in the final battle. Then there are the 2 normal endings and the 2 good endings. The basic version involves just completing the game, but to receive the second normal ending and the 2 good endings, subtle actions need to be performed on your playthrough. For normal ending B, which grants an extra scene, you need to press X at the far plane abyss after receiving the episode 5 complete message, but this scene can only be viewed if you don't obtain either of the good endings. For good ending A, you need to talk to Machin in Guardo Salam in chapter 3, and then, also in chapter 3, head to the far plane abyss and press X until you hear whistling 4 times. When you then visit the far plane abyss at the end of the game, you need to say yes to the faith. For good ending B, you need to instead say, "It's better this way" to the faith, which is kind of heartless. And then there's the perfect ending, which blows every previous ending out of the water in terms of the requirements necessary to obtain it. In addition to fulfilling the criteria for good ending A, you need to attain 100% completion in the game, which can even be tricky if you're following a guide. And that's because this isn't just a case of collecting certain reports or defeating certain enemies. No, almost every single action within your playthrough will count towards the percentage, so you can easily miss stuff. It is possible to obtain 100% within one playthrough, as shown by Minchoclad on Reddit, but this is incredibly hard, and most of the time you will need to play through the game twice due to the choice you need to make around New Yevon and the Youth League. If you do manage to attain 100%, then you're greeted with an additional scene where Tidus and Yuna are talking back in Zanarkand. It's here that Tidus explains how he was able to return and foreshadows that he may still disappear again one day. It served as a nice end to the experience, but has also been used as a basis for additional material that has since been created, like Final Fantasy X Will and Final Fantasy X 2.5 Price of Eternity. Within the expansion, Last Mission, there was also a secret ending. This could be obtained if you finished the Creature Creator. It gave players the Creature Creator ending, which actually replaced some of the perfect ending scenes. Now, even though we've only featured 7 games, there are of course many other different secret endings. They just aren't as hard to obtain in comparison. That doesn't make them any less cool though, as seeing the Gact FMV in Dirge of Cerberus is still awesome. I hope you've really enjoyed being reminded about some of the secret endings that have appeared throughout the years in Final Fantasy games though. If you did, then do please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. We'd also love to hear if there are any other secret endings you struggled with or just really enjoyed working towards unlocking. Alright guys, this is Daryl signing out. I'd like to extend a big thank you to all our Patreon and YouTube membership supporters, and of course, a big thanks to everyone who watched this video. I'll see you all again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.